Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another reading of 1001 Nights. My name is Saman Giraud and I'll be your host this evening. And the beautiful music you hear in the background is by our musical director Kamiev Sadiri, who's blessing us with his music, and the original album he's writing for the project of 1001 Nights. I love it. But yeah, we're here tonight to read. All right. I just get this. Okay. So, if you just tuned in, welcome to another reading of 1001 Nights. We are seeing each other tonight from my humble home and not from the presidential suite of the Grand Hotel. If you missed out on our special reading on Saturday for the 300th night, please just go to Facebook at Vienna Theatre Project and you'll get a glimpse of what we do for the special readings. Tonight we are going to continue the story. It's a funny title. It's Abu Mohammed, Hight, Lazybones. A man many people considered as lazy, but there's apparently a story behind it. And this man is telling his story of how he came into the possession of a very special monkey. A monkey that can speak, advise, and that for some reason is able to grant him his wishes. So yeah, let's see what Lazybones has got to say tonight. Enjoy the reading, everyone. Now when it was the 303rd night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Abu Mohammed Lazybones continued. So I alighted and saluting him, seated myself beside him, and my Mamelukes and slaves stood before me. Said the Sharif, haply thou hast some business with us, which we may have pleasure of transacting. Replied I, yes, I have business with thee. Asked he, and what is it? And I answered, I come to thee as a suitor for thy daughter's hand. So he said, thou hast neither cash, nor rank, nor family. Whereupon I pulled him out a purse of 1,000 dinars, red gold, and said to him, this is my rank, and my family. And he whom Allah bless and keep hath said, the best of ranks is wealth. And how well quoth the poet, whoso 2 dirhams hath, his lips have learnt speech of all kinds with eloquence bedight. Draw near his brethren and crave ear of him, and him thou seest hoard in prideful height. Were it not for dirhams wherein glories he, hadst found him mid mankind in sorry plight. When Richard errs in words, they all reply, sooth, thou hast spoken and hast said aright. When pauper speaketh truly, all reply, thou liest, and they hold his sayings light. Verily, dirhams in earth's every stead clothe man with rank and make them fair to sight. Gold is the very tongue of eloquence. Gold is the best of arms for fight, for white who'd fight. Now when the Sharif heard these words and understood my verse, he bowed his head awhile groundwards, then raising it said, "If it must be so, I will have of thee other 3,000 gold pieces." "I hear and I obey," answered I, and sent one of my Mamelukes home for the money. As soon as he came back with it, I handed it to the Sharif, who, when he saw it in his hands, rose and, bidding his servants shut his shop, invited his brother merchants of the bazaar to the wedding, after which he carried me to this house and wrote out my contract of marriage with his daughter, saying to me, "After 10 days I will bring thee to pay her the first visit." So I went home rejoicing, and shutting myself up with the ape, told him what had passed. And he said, "Thou hast done well." Now when the time appointed by the Sharif drew near, the ape said to me, "There is a thing I would have thee to do for me, and thou shalt have of me, when it is done, whatso thou wilt." I asked, "What is that?" And he answered, "At the upper end of the chamber, wherein thou shalt meet thy bride, the Sharif's daughter, stands a cabinet on whose door is a ring padlock of copper and the keys under it. Take the keys and open the cabinet, in which thou shalt find a coffer of iron with 4 flags, which are talismans. At its corners and in its midst stands a brazen basin full of money, wherein is tied a white cock with a cleft comb, while on one side of the coffer are 11 serpents, and on the other a knife. Take the knife and slaughter the cock, cut away the flags and upset the chest, then go back to the bride and do away her maiden head. This is what I have to ask of thee." "Hearkening and obedience," answered I, and betook myself to the house of the Sharif. So as soon as I entered the bride chamber, I looked for the cabinet and found it even as the ape had described it. Then I went in unto the bride and marvelled at her beauty and loveliness, and stature and symmetrical grace, for indeed they were such as no tongue can set forth. I rejoiced in her with exceeding joy, and in the middle of the night, when my bride slept, I rose and, taking the keys, opened the cabinet. Then I seized the knife and slew the cock, and threw down the flags and upset the coffer, whereupon the girl awoke, and seeing the closet open and the cock with cut throat, exclaimed, "There is no majesty and there is no might save in Allah, the glorious, the great. The married have got hold of me." Hardly had she made an end of speaking, when the married swooped down upon the house, and, snatching up the bride, flew away with her. Whereupon there arose a mighty clamour, and behold, in came the Sharif, buffeting his face and crying, "O Abu Mohammed, what is this deed thou hast done? It is thus thou requitest us? I made this talisman in the cabinet, fearing for my daughter from this accursed one, who for these 6 years hath sought to steal away the girl, but could not. But now there is no more abiding for thee with us, so wend thy ways." Thereupon I went forth and returned to my own house, where I made search for the ape, but could not find him, nor any trace of him. Whereby I knew that it was he who was the married, and that he had carried off my wife, and had tricked me into destroying the talisman and the cock, the 2 things which hindered him from taking her. And I repented, rending my raiment and cuffing my face. And there was no land but was straitened upon me. So I made for the desert forthright, and ceased not wandering on till night overtook me. For I knew not whither I was going. And whilst I was deep in sad thought, behold, I met two serpents, one tawny and the other white, and they were fighting to kill each other. So I took up a stone, and with one cast slew the tawny serpent, which was the aggressor, whereupon the white serpent glided away and was absent for a while. But presently she returned, accompanied by 10 other white serpents, which glided up to the dead serpent and tore her in pieces, so that only the head was left. Then they went their ways, and I fell prostrate for weariness on the ground where I stood. But as I lay pondering my case, lo, I heard a voice, though I saw no one, and the voice versified with these two couplets. Let faith with slackened bridle fare her pace, nor pass the night with mind which cares an ace. Between eye closing and its opening, Allah can foulest change to fairest case. Now when I heard this, O Commander of the Faithful, great concern got hold of me, and I was beyond measure troubled. And behold, I heard a voice from behind me extemporize these couplets. O Muslim, thou whose guide is Al-Quran, joy in what brought safe peace to thee, O man. Fear not what Satan haply whispered thee, and in us see a truth-believing clan. Then said I conjure thee, by the truth of him thou worshippest, let me know who thou art. Thereupon the invisible speaker assumed the form of a man and said, Fear not, for the report of thy good deed hath reached us, and we are a people of the true believing jinn. So if thou lack aught, let us know it, that we may have the pleasure of fulfilling thy want. Quoth I, Indeed I am in sore need, for I am afflicted with a grievous affliction, and no one was ever afflicted as I am. Quoth he, Perchance thou art Abu Mohammed Lazybones? And I replied, Yes. He rejoined, I, O Abu Muhammad, am the brother of the white serpent, whose foe thou slewest. We are 4 brothers by one father and mother, and we are all indebted to thee for thy kindness. And know thou that he who played this trick on thee in the likeness of an ape is a marid of the marids of the jinn. And had he not used this artifice, he had never been able to get the girl. For he hath loved her, and had a mind to take her this long while. But he was hindered of that talisman, and had it remained as it was, he could never have found access to her. However, fret not thyself for that. We will bring thee to her, and kill the marid, for thy kindness is not lost upon us. Then he cried out with a terrible outcry, and Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now when it was the 304th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Ifrit continued, Verily thy kindness is not lost upon us. Then he cried out with a terrible outcry in a horrible voice, and behold, there appeared a troop of the jinn, of whom he inquired concerning the ape, and one of them said, I know his abiding place. And the other asked, Where abideth he? Said the speaker, He is in the city of brass, whereon sun rises not. Then said the first jinni to me, O Abu Muhammad, take one of these, our slaves, and he will carry thee on his back, and teach thee how thou shalt get back the girl. But know that this slave is a marid of the marids, and beware, whilst he is carrying thee, lest thou utter the name of Allah, or he will flee from thee, and thou wilt fall and be destroyed. I hear and I obey, answered I, and chose out one of the slaves, who bent down and said to me, Mount. So I mounted on his back, and he flew up with me into the firmament, till I lost sight of the earth, and saw the stars as they were the mountains of earth, fixed and firm, and heard the angels crying, Praise be to Allah in heaven, while the merit held me in converse, diverting me and hindering me from pronouncing the name of Almighty Allah. But as we flew, behold, one clad in green raiment, with streaming tresses and radiant face, holding in his hand a javelin whence flew sparks of fire, accosted me, saying, O Abu Muhammad, say, there is no God but thee, God, and Mohammed is the apostle of God, or I will smite thee with this javelin. Now already I felt heartbroken by my forced silence as regards calling on the name of Allah. So I said, there is no God but thee, God, and Mohammed is the apostle of God. Whereupon the shining one smote the marid with his javelin, and he melted away and became ashes, whilst I was thrown from his back and fell headlong towards the earth, till I dropped into the midst of a dashing sea, swollen with clashing surge. And behold, I fell hard by a ship with 5 sailors therein, who, seeing me, made for me and took me up into the vessel. And they began to speak to me in some speech I knew not. But I signed to them that I understood not their speech. So they fared on till the last of the day, when they cast out a net and caught a great fish, and they broiled it and gave me to eat. After which they ceased not sailing on till they reached their city, and carried me to their king, and set me in his presence. So I kissed ground before him, and he bestowed on me a dress of honour, and said to me in Arabic, which he knew well, I appoint thee one of my officers. Thereupon I asked him the name of the city, and he replied, it is called Hanat, and is in the land of China. Then he committed me to his vizier, bidding him show me the city, which was formerly peopled by infidels, till Almighty Allah turned them into stone. And there I abode a month's space, diverting myself with viewing the place, nor saw I ever greater plenty of trees and fruits than there. And when this time had passed, one day, as I sat on the bank of a river, behold, there accosted me a horseman, who said to me, Art thou not Abu Muhammad Lazybones? Yes, answered I. Whereupon he said, Fear not, for the report of thy good deed hath reached us. Asked I, Who art thou? And he answered, I am a brother of the white serpent, and thou art hard by the place where is the damsel whom thou seekest. So saying, he took off his clothes and clad me therein, saying, Fear not, for the slave who perished under thee was one of our slaves. Then the horseman took me up behind him and rode on with me to a desert place, when he said, Dismount now and walk on between these 2 mountains till thou seest the city of brass. Then halt afar off and enter it not, ere I return to thee and tell thee how thou shalt do. To hear is to obey, I replied. And dismounting from behind him, walked on till I came to the city, the walls whereof I found of brass. Then I began to pace round about it, hoping to find a gate, but found none. And presently, as I persevered, behold, the serpent's brother rejoined me and gave me a charmed sword, which should hinder any from seeing me, then went his way. Now he had been gone but a little while, when lo, I heard a noise of cries, and found myself in the midst of a multitude of folk whose eyes were in their breasts. And seeing me, quoth they, Who art thou? And what cast thee into this place? So I told them my story, and they said, The girl thou seekest is in this city, with the married, but we know not what he hath done with her. Now we are brethren of the white serpent, adding, Go thou to yonder spring, and note where the water entereth, and enter thou with it, for it will bring thee into the city. I did as they bade me, and followed the water course, till it brought me to a sardab, a vaulted room under the earth, from which I ascended, and found myself in the midst of the city. Here I saw the damsel, seated upon a throne of gold, under a canopy of brocade, girt round by a garden full of trees of gold, whose fruits were jewels of price, such as rubies and chrysolites, pearls and coral. And the moment she saw me, she knew me, and accosted me with the Muslim salutation, saying, O my lord, who guided thee hither? So I told her all that had passed, and she said, Know that the accursed married of the greatness of his love for me hath told me what bringeth him bane and what bringeth him gain, and that there is here a talisman by means whereof he could, and he would, destroy the city and all that are therein, and whoso possesseth it, the Ifrits will do his commandment in everything. It standeth upon a pillar, whereat I asked her, And where is the pillar? And she answered, It is in such a place. And what manner of thing may the talisman be? Said I. Said she, It is in the semblance of a vulture, and upon it is a writing which I cannot read. So go thou thither, and seize it, and set it before thee, and taking a chafing dish, throw into it a little musk, whereupon there will arise a smoke, which will draw the Ifrits to thee, and they will all present themselves before thee, nor shall one be absent. Also they shall be subject to thy word, and whatsoever thou biddest them, that will they do. Arise, therefore, and fall to this thing with the blessing of Almighty Allah. I answered, hearkening and obedience, and going to the column, did as she bade me, whereupon the Ifrits all presented themselves before me, saying, Here are we, O our Lord. Whatsoever thou biddest us, that will we do. Quoth I, Bind the married who brought the damsel hither from her home. Quoth they, We hear and obey. And off they flew, and bound that married in straitest bonds, and returned after a while, saying, We have done thy bidding. Then I dismissed them, and repairing to my wife, told her what had happened, and said to her, O my bride, wilt thou go with me? Yes, answered she. So I carried her forth of the vaulted chamber whereby I had entered the city, and we fared on till we fell in with the folk who had shown me the way to find her. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Thank you all for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world, I wish you a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon. It is night here in Vienna. I'm going to go feed my cats, and I will see you on Thursday, and Joanna will be continuing to read tomorrow. As usual, remember to go inwards instead of outwards. I'm sending you much love. Stay safe.